All right, let's continue on with our story of the Romans and the Jewish people in Judea. So the first part I talked about the story of Titus and Vespasian, second, and the story of Masada. This part is going to be the story of the Roman Emperor Hadrian. And then at the end of this video, I've also got some cool archaeological stuff to show you. A place I saw in Israel that's just mind-blowing. I visited a couple times. It's like talk about a kid in a candy store. So I'll show you that at the end of this one as well. All right, so let's talk about Hadrian. So Hadrian is probably has one of the biggest impacts on the Jewish people in Judea. So Hadrian is a Roman emperor. You can see the years there. 117 to 138 is when he's Roman emperor. He is Roman emperor during the quote-unquote golden age of Rome. And I always make this point in my Western Civ class that, well, it's not a golden age for everybody. If you were Jewish, if you were a Christian, not exactly a golden age for you. Hadrian had a reputation of being a very ruthless person to the Jewish people. Remember, by now, you already had Masada, you already had the temple destroyed, you had a lot of other temples, smaller ones in Judea destroyed, and it's not a surprise that the Jewish people are starting to get very upset with the way they are being treated. You know, the Jewish people are this indigenous people in Judea. The Romans have come in, they've persecuted them, and things are about to get even worse. Most people have heard of Hadrian. I've heard of him because of what's called Hadrian's Wall, which is up between England and Scotland. I'll probably make a little short video on that just for kicks, the story of Hadrian's Wall. You can probably find it on my little YouTube channel if you wanted to just get that as well. I was going to make that at some point. But anyways, this story is what we want to focus on. And there was a man named Simon Bar Kokhba, and I've seen his name spelled several different ways. So if anybody's watching goes, it's spelled completely differently. Yes, I know. And so Simon Bar Kokhba, he was a leader of the Jewish people in this region during the time of Hadrian. And during this time, Hadrian outlawed circumcision. Now, for Jewish people, circumcision is at the core of being Jewish. All Jewish male babies are circumcised. It is a tradition all the way from the beginning of Judaism until today. If you're a male, you're circumcised. Now, there are non-Jewish people who get circumcised. That's because, you know, doctors think it's cleaner, it's healthier, or whatever, right? That's some medical stuff. But from a Jewish perspective, it's part of being core to be Jewish. For males, of course. And so this is outlawed by Hadrian. And so the Jewish people are very upset. And Simon Bar Kokhba leads a revolt. And he leads this revolt, and Hadrian says, all right, now I'm going to squash this revolt. Sends massive number of forces into Judea. And according to sources we have, according to Roman sources we have, massacres as many as 500,000 of the Jewish people in Judea. 500,000 Jewish people. He doesn't stop there. He doesn't just outlaw circumcision. And I want to pay close attention to what he's doing here. He outlaws the circumcision. He kills the population. And then something not many people know about, he renames the land. And he renames the land from Judea to Palestine. So for people who follow the current events in the Middle East and they see the word Palestine and they wonder, where does that word come from? It comes, why is that region sometimes referred to in that term? It's referred to that term because this was Hadrian renaming the land. He actually tried to rename the city of Jerusalem as well, but that one didn't historically stick. But the term Palestine did. And what he's doing, if you think about this, he's trying to destroy the Jewish identity. You kill the population. You outlaw circumcision. You rename the land. Guys, when you think about this, this is genocide, right? This is the type of stuff that the Hitlers tried to do later on. It's not just killing the population, it's destroying the very identity of the Jewish people. And when Hadrian does this, after this moment, this has tremendous long-term implications into the region. And so you obviously want to know these names and know Simon Bar Kokhba and know all these points that happen. But think of the long-term implications, because once this happens, the Jewish people will have a very small presence left in Judea for centuries and centuries and centuries. there will always be a Jewish population in Judea, but until the Jewish people even have the opportunity to go back in mass numbers to their homeland, won't be until about the 1800s AD. We'll cover this much later in our semester in the Middle History of the Middle East class. And what that means is for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, the Jewish people were forced out. The indigenous people weren't really allowed to be there in mass numbers. In between that time period, multiple other civilizations will move in. Obviously, the Romans, and then after the Romans, you're going to eventually have other civilizations, and in future lectures we're going to talk about the Mayans, the Abbasids, the Ottomans. Eventually the British move in, and other civilizations. And so this is in part what's going to kind of create the conflicts. If you know anything about the conflicts in Israel today, and you think of the what's called Israeli-Palestinian conflicts and all of that, you can't understand the current conflicts without understanding the thousands of years of history in the past. And so this stuff that I'm talking about now, later in the semester, I'm going to kind of connect back to and say, oh, this is where this all kind of comes from. In terms of what quote unquote Palestinian people, that's a more modern term, right? And I'll kind of explain that later on. At this point when the Romans are doing this, if you think about this, the Islamic faith is not even around at this point, right? This is still centuries before the rise of Islam. And so this is pretty devastating. And, I found this kind of chart, and it really gives you a perspective. I'm just going to read some numbers here of the different time periods in history when the Jewish people were persecuted. And it's estimated during the Roman conquest, the entire period between about 63 BC and 135 AD, during the Roman time period of Hadrian, there were a couple million Jewish people who could have been murdered, right? That's insane. And when you start then looking at all the other time periods, it talks about, the Jewish people killed during the Byzantine period, during the Arab conquest, during the early medieval period, during the Russian pogroms, and so forth. It really starts to add up into the millions. And so this is kind of one of the unfortunate history of the Jewish people that, once they spread out of Judea, then they end up in other places and face persecution in many other places as well. So this is going to come back later on in the semester. All right, so I hope that's clear and you understand all that. And some of these ideas we are going to, of course, come back to. One other quick thing I just want to show you, I did just mention a lot of other civilizations are going to inhabit Israel and Judea, and as a result of that, from a non-political, non-historical thing, it's not political, but definitely historical thing, there's a lot of history there, a lot of different civilizations, and there's some really amazing archaeological sites. This is one I want to show you. A place called Bet Shan. I was there. You can see from these pictures. I've been there a few times. These pictures are from when I was a bit younger. And it's just like insane because you have something like 20 plus different civilizations that have been in this piece of archaeological site. And so you go there and, first you look at it and you go, I don't know anything about this. It's just a bunch of rubble. But this is maybe the size of a couple 2-3 football fields. And in this 2-3 football field size, look at all the different civilizations you have there. And I'll show you a couple other images here and show you what I mean. So again, here you can see some close-ups of what I'm talking about. Is so many different civilizations here. So you see mosaics, over here. I believe those were Byzantines. You see amphitheaters. You see columns that fell from earthquakes. And so different civilizations inhabited this one archaeological site. You could see things from ancient Egypt because there's archaeological, if you go from the top of it, where in my the picture before, there was some archaeological things from Egypt. You see Byzantine, you see Romans, you see medieval, you see Crusader stuff, all these different time periods all in one spot. So if you like archaeology, I mean, this is an archaeologist's dream, is to go and explore in Bet Shan. Just so many different things there. All right, so that's pretty cool. Just something on the side for you to see. All right, here's just a couple more images just to show you, that I pulled just to find as well. So the question is, what's next? And so we've ended our antiquity period. And so the next topic we need to get into in our next lecture is going to be the rise of what is called the classical Islamic period. And so we're going to kind of jump into about the 600s AD, and we're going to talk about first the rise of Islam. And then, we've talked a lot about religion in this class, Judaism. We're going to talk about Islam as well. Obviously, that's a big part of the Middle East. But I don't want you to think the whole course is just about religious stuff. We're going to talk a lot about political things as well. And we'll get into some of the dynasties that are going to rule there. And maybe you've heard of them, maybe you haven't, but the Umayyads, the Abbasids, and then spend a lot of time on the Ottomans. But the first thing we need to do is kind of explain the story of the rise of Islam, obviously a very important monotheistic religion as well in the Middle East, and the impact it's going to have is going to be tremendous. And so that's going to be kind of our next set of stories that we're going to get into. But I hope this kind of journey through the antiquity period was interesting because, as I mentioned, very often when people teach a history of the Middle East class, they don't even look at the antiquity period. And I think it's a shame because, A, there's just tremendous history there. But again, I don't think you can fully understand all the Middle East history all the way today if you don't have at least some bearings of the antiquity period. So hopefully those were all interesting. Again, if you have any questions, please let me know. All right, that's it. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.